30 days. That's what the doctor said. 30 days to say goodbye to a child who hadn't even learned to tie her shoes yet. But here's what they didn't tell Sarah's parents that day in the hospital. Sometimes, doctors are wrong. This is the story of Sarah Mitchell, a 3-year-old girl from Columbus, Ohio, who loved Peppa Pig, refused to eat anything green, and had a laugh that could fill an entire room. In the span of 2 weeks, she went from dancing in her living room to fighting for her life in a pediatric ICU. And what her family discovered during those 30 days would challenge everything they thought they knew about hope, medicine, and the will to survive. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Because to understand how Sarah ended up with a death sentence, we need to go back to the moment her mother knew something was terribly, terribly wrong. It started with the headaches. At least, that's what Jennifer Mitchell thought they were. Sarah would wake up crying in the middle of the night, clutching her head, screaming words her parents couldn't understand. She was 3. Toddlers get upset. They have tantrums. They don't always make sense. So Jennifer did what any parent would do. She gave her Tylenol. She held her. She sang to her until she fell back asleep. But the headaches didn't stop. Then came the vomiting. Morning after morning, Sarah would throw up her breakfast. Cheerios, toast, didn't matter, it all came back up. Jennifer took her to the pediatrician. The doctor said it was probably a stomach bug. Kids get them all the time. Give it a week. A week passed. Sarah got worse. Now she was stumbling when she walked. Her words were slurred, like she was drunk. Her right eye started drifting to the side, not focusing on anything. And that's when Jennifer made the call that would change everything. She didn't go back to the pediatrician. She drove straight to Nationwide Children's Hospital. She knew. Deep down, every mother knows. The ER doctor took one look at Sarah and ordered an immediate CT scan. Jennifer remembers sitting in that waiting room, watching SpongeBob on mute, her husband David beside her, neither of them speaking. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. When the doctor finally came out, his face told them everything they needed to know. He sat them down. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "We found a mass," he said, "in Sarah's brain." A mass. That's the word doctors use when they don't want to say tumor yet, when they don't want to say cancer. But Jennifer knew. She'd spent the last 3 hours on Google in that waiting room, searching every symptom, every possibility, praying she was wrong. She wasn't. The tumor was in Sarah's cerebellum, the part of the brain that controls balance, coordination, fine motor skills. It was the size of a golf ball. And it was growing. They admitted Sarah immediately. Within hours, she was in the pediatric intensive care unit, hooked up to machines, IVs running into her tiny arms. The next morning, a pediatric oncologist came to their room. Dr. Richard Chen. He was kind, gentle, the type of doctor who kneels down when he talks to you so he's at eye level. But what he had to say? "It's called medulloblastoma," Dr. Chen explained. "It's a fast-growing cancerous tumor, grade 4, the most aggressive type." Jennifer asked the question every parent asks. "Can you remove it?" Dr. Chen paused. "We can try," he said, "but even if the surgery is successful, Sarah will need intensive chemotherapy, possibly radiation, and even then." He stopped. David pushed. "Even then what?" "Even then, the survival rate for a tumor this advanced in a child this young is less than 30%. 30%. Jennifer felt the room spin. But that wasn't the worst part. Dr. Chen pulled up Sarah's latest scans on his tablet. He pointed to a white mass on the screen, surrounded by darkness. "The tumor is pressing against her brainstem," he said quietly. "It's causing a buildup of cerebrospinal fluid, hydrocephalus. Her brain is swelling." "What does that mean?" Jennifer whispered. "It means if we don't operate within the next 48 hours, Sarah will slip into a coma, and if the surgery doesn't go well." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Let me stop here for a second, because I need you to understand something. When you hear statistics like 30% survival rate, it's easy to think of it as just a number. But to Jennifer and David, sitting in that hospital room, watching their daughter sleep with tubes coming out of her arms, that wasn't a statistic. That was their baby girl. The same girl who, just 2 weeks earlier, had insisted on wearing her Elsa dress to the grocery store. The same girl who would climb into their bed at 6 a.m. every Saturday and wake them up by putting her cold feet on their backs. Now they were being told she had 30 days to live, maybe less. So they made a choice. They signed the consent forms for surgery, and they prayed. The surgery was scheduled for 6 a.m. the next morning. Jennifer didn't sleep that night. Neither did David. They sat on either side of Sarah's hospital bed, holding her hands, watching her breathe. At 5:30 a.m., the nurses came. They wheeled Sarah down the long white hallway toward the operating room. Jennifer and David walked beside her, Jennifer holding Sarah's stuffed rabbit, the one she'd had since she was born. At the double doors to the OR, they had to stop. Jennifer kissed Sarah's forehead. "Mommy loves you," she whispered. "Be brave, baby." Sarah, barely awake, mumbled something back. It sounded like, "Love you too." And then she was gone. Through those doors. Into the hands of strangers. 8 hours. That's how long the surgery took. 8 hours of sitting in a waiting room that smelled like stale coffee and antiseptic. 8 hours of watching other families come and go, some crying with relief, others. Well, others didn't leave smiling. At hour 6, David started packing. At hour 7, Jennifer threw up in the bathroom. At hour 8, Dr. Chen walked through the doors. He was still in his surgical scrubs. There was a mask hanging around his neck. He looked exhausted. But he was smiling. "We got it," he said. "All of it, the tumor is out." Jennifer collapsed into David's arms. For the first time in 2 weeks, she let herself cry. But here's the thing about cancer. Removing the tumor, that's only the beginning. Because even though the surgery was successful, the battle was far from over. Sarah still had to survive the recovery. She still had to survive the chemo. And most importantly, she had to survive the next 30 days. Because that's what Dr. Chen had told them after the surgery, when the relief wore off and reality set back in. "The next month is critical," he said. "Her body has been through trauma. There's a risk of infection, of seizures, of the tumor growing back. We'll start chemotherapy as soon as she's strong enough, but statistically..." He paused. "The next 30 days will determine everything." Day 1 after surgery, Sarah didn't wake up. Day 2, she opened her eyes but didn't recognize anyone. Day 3, she screamed when the nurses tried to change her bandages. Day 4, she said, "Mommy." Jennifer sobbed. Recovery was brutal. Sarah couldn't walk, couldn't feed herself. The surgery had damaged some of her motor functions, and the doctors weren't sure if they'd come back. She had to relearn how to sit up, how to hold a spoon, how to speak in full sentences. And through it all, the chemotherapy started. If you've never seen a toddler go through chemo, I hope you never do. The drugs made her sick, constantly. She lost her hair within 2 weeks. Her skin turned pale, almost gray. She dropped to 22 pounds. Jennifer stayed by her side every single day. She slept in a cot next to Sarah's hospital bed. She learned how to administer anti-nausea medication. She read Peppa Pig books until her voice gave out. David went back to work after week 2. Someone had to. The medical bills were piling up. Insurance covered some of it, but not all, not even close. He'd come to the hospital every evening after his shift, still in his construction boots, covered in dust, and he'd sit with Sarah and sing to her. Badly. He sang badly. But Sarah loved it. Day 15, Sarah's white blood cell count dropped dangerously low. She developed a fever, infection. They had to stop the chemo and pump her full of antibiotics. She almost didn't make it through that night. Day 20, she had a seizure, a bad one. The nurses had to hold her down while her little body convulsed, her eyes rolling back. Jennifer thought she was losing her, but she didn't. Sarah came back. She always came back. Day 25. 5 days left on Dr. Chen's timeline. Sarah sat up in bed on her own for the first time in weeks. She looked at Jennifer, smiled, and said, "I want chicken nuggets." Jennifer laughed and cried at the same time. Day 30 came and went. Sarah was still here. Dr. Chen ordered another MRI. Jennifer and David held their breath. The scan came back clean. No signs of regrowth. No new tumors. Dr. Chen sat them down again, this time with a different look on his face. Not grim. Not cautious. Hopeful. "I'm not going to lie to you," he said. "Sarah's not out of the woods yet. She'll need more chemo, probably 6 more months of treatment, and we'll need to monitor her closely for years. But she's responding, better than we expected, better than most kids with her type of tumor." He smiled. "Your daughter," he said, "is a fighter." 6 months later, Sarah rang the bell. If you don't know what that means, it's what kids do when they finish their last round of chemotherapy. They ring a bell in the hospital hallway. And everyone, nurses, doctors, other families, they all stop and clap. Sarah rang that bell so hard it echoed through the entire floor. Jennifer recorded it on her phone. She still watches that video when she needs to remember what hope sounds like. Today, Sarah is 5 years old. She's in kindergarten. She still loves Peppa Pig. She still refuses to eat anything green. And she's been cancer-free for 18 months. Her doctors call her a miracle. Her parents call her their warrior. But here's what Sarah's story really is. It's a reminder. That 30 days isn't always 30 days. That statistics don't account for the human spirit. That sometimes, against all odds, love and medicine and sheer stubbornness can rewrite the ending. Jennifer still has nightmares sometimes. She wakes up in a panic, convinced she's back in that hospital room, watching Sarah slip away. But then she walks down the hall, opens Sarah's bedroom door, and sees her daughter sleeping peacefully, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm. And she breathes. Because Sarah is here. She's alive. And every single day since that diagnosis has been a gift. If you or someone you know is facing a childhood cancer diagnosis, please know you're not alone. Organizations like St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, the American Childhood Cancer Organization, and the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation offer resources, support, and hope. And if Sarah's story moved you, hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe because every week we're bringing you stories of survival, hope, and the unbreakable human spirit. Thanks for watching. And remember, sometimes 30 days is just the beginning.